Hey friends, what up? Welcome back. Oh wait, sorry. How you doing there? Hey friends, which one do you guys like better? Do you like, hey friends, what's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Or do you like, how you doing there? Whatever. Trying out different things, Anyways, welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Mem Tes, Daf 49. Masechet Yevamos. Friends, Daf 49 is interesting because we're now in Sfiras Omer, and Sfiras Omer is 49 days. Yeah, it's nice, right? So, anyways, and Yoni Diyoma. Friends, today we talk about mamzers. What do you want me to tell you? We also finished the 4th parak, which is cool. Moving on to the 5th parak. How many parakim are there again? I think 16, right? Alright, what do you want me to tell you? Alright, friends, so yeah, mamzers, and complete the 4th parak. Let's do it. So, we're on Daf Mem Tes all the way at the top of the Mishnah. Ezu mamzer. Okay, but who's a mamzer? Kol sher basar shu b'lo yavu divrei Rabbi Akiva. Any relative who you're not allowed to marry. So like any erva that would only be a lav. So for example, according to Rabbi Yehuda, for example, when the pasuk, as we're going to see in the Gemara, the pasuk says leigala knaf aviv, it's talking about a woman who was raped by one's father, and we're saying that you're not allowed to marry her, and that the son, right? If Yaakov raped Sarah, Ruvain, the son, would not be allowed to marry Sarah, and if he does, it's a lav. Now, it says Rabbi Akiva, even though it's only a lav, the child would be a mamzer. So again, Ezu mamzer, who's a mamzer, kol sher basar, any sort of erva, shehu below yavo, that even is simply lo yavo, it's just a lav, but right, that you're not allowed to marry this individual, even so the child will be a mamzer. To Rabbi Akiva, that's Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Shimon Atimni Omer, says Shimon Atimni, kol shechayavim olav, karis b'dei shemayim. Anybody you chayiv karis, so it's not enough for it to just be a lav, you'd have to talk be chayiv karis. So I don't know, who can give me an example of something that you chayiv karis? I don't know, marry your wife's sister, I think it's a chayiv karis, right? So the child would be a mamzer. B'alacha kedvar, the halacha is like Shimon Atimni. Rabbi Yeshua says Rabbi Yeshua kol shechayav and all of misas bezdin. It says Rabbi Yeshua, the child would only be a mamzer if you'd be chayiv misas bezdin. For example, if a fellow sleeps with an eshes ish, with a married woman, so he's chayiv misa. I think we strangle him to death. Oof. All right. Well, and then so that child would be a mamzer. Amr Reb Shimon ben Azai, says Reb Shimon ben Azai, Matzosim Megillas Yuchsin b'Yerushalayim. I found some kind of familial listing scroll. V'chosav, when it says in it, Ish Ploni Mamzer. A certain fellow is a mamzer, Me'esh Ish, and he's a mamzer because he was born to a mother and father who basically the father slept with a woman who was a married woman, and that child is a mamzer, l'kaim div Rabbi Yeshua, and that kind of would bolster up Rabbi Yeshua's opinion, which is that a mamzer would specifically be in the situation where there's a chiyuv misa, such as eshes ish, a married woman. Ishtos shemesa muter ba'achosa. Right? So if you have Reuven's married to Sarah, and Sarah dies, so he can marry Sarah's sister. Gersha v'mesa muter ba'achosa. If he divorced her, and then she dies, he can marry her sister, right? If Reuben and Sarah get divorced, so then he's not allowed to marry Sarah's sister. However, once Sarah dies, he is allowed to marry her sister. Nises la'acher v'mesa muter ba'achosa. If Reuven and Sarah got divorced, Sarah then went and married somebody else, Sarah dies, Reuven's allowed to marry her sister. Friends, the theme is that once Sarah is dead, Reuven can marry her sister. Yevimto shemesa muter ba'achosa. If Reuven had done yibum with Sarah and then she dies, he's allowed to marry her sister. Cholitz lahu mesa muter ba'achosa. If Reuven did chalitza with Sarah and then she died, he's permitted to marry her sister. Nises la'acher v'mesa muter ba'achosa. If he did chalitza with her and then she married somebody else and then she died, he's allowed to marry her sister. Friends, you get the point? If she dies, he could marry her sister. says the Gemara. My time with Rabbi Akiva. How come Rabbi Akiva says that the child would be a mamzer even if the relationship between his parents was only that of a lav, just simply a negative prohibition, but there's no chiyuv kares, no misas bezdin. So as I alluded to earlier, my time with Rabbi Akiva, how come Rabbi Akiva says this? The chsiv, as the pasuk says, L'yikach ish es eishes aviv. A fellow should not be with his father's wife. V'leigale knof aviv, and you should not reveal the robe of his father. Konof shura aviv leigale, that the robe that was revealed by his father, he should not himself reveal. I don't know, the robe that's why his father should not reveal. V'savar like Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Akiva holds like the way that Rabbi Yehuda understands this pasuk, the Omer ba'anusas aviv v'kosav medaber, that he says that this is referring to when it says do not reveal the robe of your father. It's talking about a woman who was raped by your father, right? So if Reuven's father Yaakov raped Sarah, so Reuven is not allowed to marry Sarah. And if he does, it's in violation of Lo Yigale Knafaviv Dahavya Lo Chayve Lavin, which is a negative prohibition. Chayve Lavin. B'samach, it says in that area of the Torah, Lo Yovo Mamzer B'kal Hashem, that a mamzer should not come into the nation of God. Ama Mehane have a mamzer. So we see from here that from a lav, you can be a mamzer. Now, what about according to Rabbi Simai, who understands that according to Rabbi Akiva, it's not only limited to chayve lavin that are relatives, but even chayve lavin like hamachzer grushaso, right? If Reuven was married to Sarah, they get divorced. Sarah then marries Shimon, and then they get divorced. So he's not allowed to marry Sarah again. If he does, then that child will be a mamzer, according to Rabbi Simai. Rabbi Yeshviv, Demar ba'afilu chayve esei, and according to Rabbi Yeshviv, who says that according to Rabbi Akiva, you'd even be chayiv for a lav that's implied from an asay. So, for example, right, it says that when it comes to an Egyptian or a domi, so it says that the third generation you can marry them, implying that the first two generations you may not. So it's a lav that comes michlal asay, which we treat as an asay, and says Rabbi Yeshviv that according to Rabbi Akiva, the child from a domi or a mitzri, only two generations removed, would also be a mamzer. Nafk lehu mi velo. Okay, so they learn it out from the extra word velo. Okay, fine. So Rabbi Akiva's opinion is that even a lav, right? If the relationship between this man and this woman is simply a lav, the child will be a mamzer. V'Shimon Atimni savar l'kirabanon. Shimon Atimni says that you're chayiv, that the child is a mamzer only if the relationship between the man and the woman would be that of karis. Da'amre, so savar l'kirabanon, he holds like the rabbanon when it comes to lo yigale knaf aviv. Da'amre b'shomeres yovam shalaviv v'kosav medaber, that Shimon Atimni holds like the rabbanon who say that lo yigale knaf aviv, to not reveal the robe of your father, is referring to the shomeres yovam, that if your father's brother died and now your father needs to do yibum with his brother's widow, and then you sleep with her, so that's a chiyuv kares, right? It's your father's brother's wife. Dahavila chayve kresus, which is a chiyuv kares, v'samach le'yover mamzer, and it says near in the pasuk nearby that you shouldn't have mamzerim in the congregation of Israel, of God. So we see that. So Shimon Atimni learns that dafka by chayve kresus is where we have to be concerned about mamzers. Alma michayve kresus have mamzer for Rabbi Yeshua, and according to Rabbi Yeshua, who says that there's only a mamzer if the relationship between the man and the woman would be that of a chiyuv of chayve misas bezdin, right? For example, in Eishes Ish. So the way that he learns it as lichtov rachmana lo yigale, right? If we take a look at Shimon Atimni's opinion or Rabbi Akiva's opinion, they both learn it out from v'lo yig. And now we're looking at Rabbi Yeshua's opinion, right? So if we look at Rabbi Akiva's opinion and Shimon Atimni's opinion, so they both learn it out from v'lo yigale knaf aviv, right? Rabbi Akiva is saying that that's a lav. Shimon Atimni is saying that is talking about chiyuv kares, but says Rabbi Yeshua lo yikach lamali, what do you do? Right? What about the first part of the pasuk which says Lo yikach ish es eshes aviv v'lo yigala knaf aviv? Everyone's ignoring the first part of the pasuk. What do we do with the first part of the pasuk? Elalav achi kamer. This is what the pasuk is saying. Milo yikach ad lo yigale avi mamzer. That lo yikach, do not take eshes aviv, i.e., a married woman who would therefore be a chiyuv misa, tfei lo avi mamzer. But any of those other examples of chiyuv kares or a lav would not be a mamzer from that. Specifically, somebody that you'd be chayiv, specifically a relationship between the man and the woman, that there would be a chiyuv misas bezdin. That is where the child would be a mamzer. Omer Abaye says, Abaye kol modem b'ba'al anido v'al sota. Everybody agrees that if a man sleeps with a nida or with a sota, a woman who was warned against being with a particular fellow, and she was with that fellow nonetheless, so she'ein avolad mamzer, that the child would not be a mamzer. Nida the tafsi ba kiddushin. How do we know by nida that the child is not a mamzer? Because kiddushin is tofes by a nida. Shnemer usihi nidaso olav afilu b'shas nidaso tafsi ba kiddushin. It says usihi nidaso olav. Tihi is lashon havoya, which is like, right, getting married. What was it? I don't know. Havoya is makish havoya liyitzia. What was that? What's makish havoya liyitzia? Ki sikach ishisha. Oh yeah, but havoya is a reference to marriage, and therefore, so it says usihi nidaso olav, that even when she's in nida, then they're still married. So therefore, there's kiddushin even, there's marriage even by a nida, and fine. So afilu b'shas nidaso tafsi ba kiddushin sotanami, and also by sota do tafsi ba kiddushin, there is kiddushin by a sota as well, that even after she's been warned and she secludes herself with another man, that she's still married to her original husband, and therefore a fellow who sleeps with a nida or with a sota, the child would not be a mamzer. Taninam yochi. We talk also in a brayso like this. Akol modim. Everybody agrees b'ba'al nida, that somebody who sleeps with a nida v'ala sota or on a sota v'al shomeres yavam, or in a woman who needs to do yibum or chalitza, but instead she gets married to somebody else, that child she'ein avlad mamzer, that child would not be considered a mamzer. Abaye, how come Abaye leaves out shomeres yavam? Misapkalei kirab ikishmul. He's not sure if we hold like Rav, who says that there is no kiddushin by a shomeres yavam, or like Shmuel, who says that there is kiddushin by a shomeres yavam. Amr B'Shim Ben Azai, so says B'Shim Ben Azai that Itaka found this Megillas Yuchsin, this scroll that had certain lineage things on it. Tani Shimon Ben Azai, Tanya, we learn in a brayso, Shimon Ben Azai, Omer says Shimon Ben Azai, Matzos Megillas Yuchsin b'Yerushalayim. Ataka found a scroll of lineage in Jerusalem, Uchsivba, and it said V'chosuvba, and it says in it, Ish Ploni Mamzer Me'eshes Ish, that there's a certain fellow who's a Mamzer because he's born to a father. His father had slept with a married woman. It also says Mishnah Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Kavanoki. It also says that the teaching of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is Kavanoki. This is a Gemara that we saw, I think, at the end of Masechta Eruvin, right? It says that whenever that we don't have so many teachings of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, but whatever we do, we always paskin like him. Very interesting. Menashe harages Yishaya, and also it said in this scroll that Menashe killed his grandfather Yishaya Hanavi. Amar Rava says, Rava meidan daine v'katle, that Menashe made up some kind of judgment and decided that he was going to kill his grandfather Yishaya. Amar le Moshe Rabach Omar. And Menashe says that he says to his grandfather Yeshaya, it says in the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu says, K'lo yirani ha'adam v'chai, that Moshe Rabbeinu says about God that nobody could see me and live. V'atamart, and you, my grandfather Yeshaya, said, V'eretz Hashem Yoshev al kisei Rom v'nisa, that I saw God on his throne. Moshe Rabbeinu Amar Right? I.e., how can Moshe say that nobody could see God, and then you could say that that you see God sitting on the throne? Moshe says, "Mi kashem elokeinu b'chokreinu elav," who is like Hashem our God that we can call out to him whenever we want. And you, Yeshaya, say that you could, seek out God when He's able to be found. I.e., He's not always able to be found. Moshe, your teacher said, "As mispayamecha amale," I will fill up the number of your days. I will fill them up, but there won't be any more than that. And you, Yeshaya, said that I will add on to your life 15 years. He said that to Chizkiah. So how could you add on to a fellow's life? You can only fill them up. Amir Yeshaya says, Yeshaya Dainabe to lo mekabel ma de'emole. So now Yeshaya said about Menashe, look, I know that he's not going to listen to whatever I'll tell him. V'emole, and if I explain to him how to resolve these psukim, Ashav Yemezid, then I will basically make my grandson into a mazid for killing me. Omar Shem Ibala Ba'arza, so he said one of the names of God, and he got swallowed up into a cedar tree. Asua La'arzav and a Sarua, and then so then the people went to kill him. They went and they cut down the cedar tree, kimota lahade puma, and when they got to Yeshaya's mouth, noch nafshe itakadad mishum da'amar, and that's because he said v'socham tmeisvasayim anochi yoshev, that I sit among a nation that has impure lips, and that is why he dafka died when the axe hit his mouth. So the Gemara says, but still, how do we resolve these psukim? Ve'eres Hashem. Well, when Yeshaya says that he saw God, even though Moshe says that nobody could see me and live, it's like within the Bride called Nevim nistaklu bas baklaya she'ena me'ira, Moshe ben nistaklu bas baklaya me'ira. Well, all the other prophets, they really only saw God through an unclear glass, and therefore, when Yeshaya says that he saw God, it's not exactly like on the same level that Moshe Rabbeinu says that nobody could see God and live. Moshe was talking about a much higher level of nevuah, right? Yeshaya was talking about a lower level of nevuah. Dirsha Hashem bimatzo, when it says that seek out God when He's able to be found, implying that He's not always able to be found. It depends if you're an individual or if you're a congregation. An individual is not, right, can only find God at certain times, but a congregation can always find God and beseech God. So when is that time that an individual is able to beseech God? That is during the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, during the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. That is when even an individual fellow could seek out God. It's Mispa Yomecha Amale, and it says that I will fill up your days, and yet Yeshaya says that I'm going to write that God will add on to your days 15 years. Tanoyi, it's Taka Machlokas Tanoim. The Tanya is when the Brisa says Mispa Yamecha Amale, I will fill up the days of your the number of your days. Elu Shnei Doris, these are the years of your life. Zochum Ashlimin Lo Zocha Pochsin Lo Dever Bekiva. Bekiva says, look, if you merit, so then you'll live your full life, but if you don't merit, so then you'll have less than what you were allotted. V'chacham say Zochum Osifim Lo, that if a fellow merits, so we add on to his life. Lo zacha pochsin lo, and if he doesn't merit, so then we reduce the length of his life. Amru lo Rabbi Akiva, so the rabbi said to Rabbi Akiva, Hare omer v'osafti al yomecha chomesh esrishana. How do you explain what Yeshaya says that that the prophecy to Chizkiah that I'll add on to your life 15 years? That seems to be saying that he's adding on to his life. So Amr loem mishelo usifulo. So Rabbi Akiva says no. It was from his own years that they added to him. I.e., Yeshaya was saying to his son Chizkiah that when he got sick, he was going to die 15 years earlier, and he was saying that now you're going to, you're going to live your full life, the additional 15 years that were going to be taken from you. Because it says in the Navi that when Chizkiah was sick, it says that he's going to have it says that when Yeshaya was sick, when Chizkiah was sick, so it says that he's going to have a child named Yoshio. Now, at the time that he was sick, he hadn't yet even had his child Menashe, who was the father of Yoshio. So therefore, memele, how could it be that, if he was going to be right? Meaning. I'm sorry, one second. Chizkiah was sick. Now, way before Chizkiah even got sick, it was prophecy that Chizkiah was going to have a descendant, Yoshio. Now, that means that Chizkiah was supposed to have a descendant named Yoshio. Now, at the time that Chizkiah got sick, he had not yet given birth to, he doesn't give birth, but his son Menashe wasn't even born yet, so Memela then Yoshio wouldn't have been born, but Yoshio was supposed to be born, i.e., he was going to die early before Yoshio was even born, which means that then when they gave him the extra 15 years, it was really the extra 15 years that he was supposed to have all along, and during those times, Menashe was going to be born, who was the father of Yoshio. So the point is that his life was going to be cut short, but then it got filled up again. Menashe had not yet been born at that time, so meaning he was going to die earlier than intended, right? As we see from the prophecy that was way earlier than that said that Chizkiah was going to have a grandchild, Yoshio, but then it seemed like he was going to die before then, which means that his life was going to get cut short, which then they filled up to its proper amount. Again, that's how Rabbi Akiva explains it. V'Rabbanan, whereas the rabbis say Miksiv Mechizkiah Leveis David Ksiv, the pasuk doesn't say anywhere that specifically Chizkiah is going to have a grandson, Yoshio. It just says that the house of David is going to have it. Chizkiah Nolad didn't have to come from Chizkiah; it could have come from somebody else. So that's not necessarily a proof that it was that Yoshio was necessarily going to come from Chizkiah and that he was going to be dying younger, but rather just that you could still say, according to the rabbis, that the years were added. Ishto Shemesa v'chulei, Yevimto Shemesa v'chulei. The Mishnah had listed like all sorts of different implementations and different ways that you could marry the wife of your sister after she dies. Omer of Yosef Kanshona Rebbe Mishnah Shein Tzvicha. Says of Yosef, interestingly, that Rebbe over here, Rebbe Yehuda Nasi, he added stuff to the Mishnah that wasn't necessary. I mean, all these different examples. Says Rav Yosef, not exactly sure why we need all of them. Friends, that was Daf Mem Tes or Masechet Yevamos. We saw three opinions in the Mishnah about how a mamzer can be made. One is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva that even from a chiyuv lav, right, a relationship that would be a negative prohibition. The Chachamim's Shimon Timni's opinion is that it would have to be from a relationship that would have a chiyuv karis, and Rabbi Yeshua's opinion is that it would have to be from a relationship that would have a chiyuv misa. Friends, peace out.